Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi Live Noding. In this episode, we're gonna continue with our Sverchok and list mask explorations. So far we've been looking into these nodes and all the different modes that this node can offer when it's doing the masking. So you can think of this like just a single node that's kind of help you to do like a masking of components of a mesh kind of procedurally, and you have all different modes to choose for. The one I will use to demonstrate this thing in use is the bicenter and radius. So I'll save this real quick. Extrude combo, save it, and I'll delete everything in 3D view. I'll have a grid mesh. Actually, it's called plane. Plane MK2 should be good. And let's have a look at the result first. Okay, this is what we're gonna be creating. 6 by 6 and center it. Okay, so let's use this list masking, and you know by now that if you remember the old live noding video, there you can actually, in order to use the list mask, you probably want to use nodes that actually have mask capability. Some of them is kind of hidden, like this extrude region, for example. This node actually have mask option, like a mask input. So whenever you found nodes with mask input, that means you can easily use the any kind of masking with this node. Things that can be slightly hard to understand is like mask vertices and actually mask list mask out and list mask join. I believe that this and this can be can be used together to make like a kind of a setup where you're separating the one that's being selected, like being masked, and the one that's not being masked, and then you combine them together again into a single part. So I'm not gonna do that for now. I'm gonna use the easy one first. So instead of using list mask join and out, instead of using actually we might use mask vertices first. Later on we're gonna use the extrude region. So mask vertices. First of all, let's pipe this plane into the select mesh elements. Okay, we know already that for this one, by center and radius, we simply need to provide the center and the radius. By default, center is at 0, 0, 0 and the radius is 1. So we should get some kind of result already. If we plug this mask, for example, the face mask into this guy, and this vertices and polygon data, the original data plug into mask vertices, we should actually get a result. And we get nothing. Probably actually with mask vertices, this guy is kind of expecting vertices mask, so that's what we should have. We can turn on partial selection, but seems to be doing nothing in this case. That's okay. We can increase the radius and reduce it. And mask vertices is actually super handy. If I'm not wrong, if you plug in the edges instead of the poly, you should get just the edges output. Like that. That's what I was talking about. Sometimes this can be slightly tricky, but basically all the polygon mesh data should plug into this guy, and then the one that we want to show up, either polygon or edges, goes into this mask vertices. Okay, that's That's with mask vertices. It's actually really handy if you are masking some areas of like a 3D mesh, and then you want to display only those mask vertices. But the one that really useful is if we are using the something like extrude region. So let's use I think in this case we want to be using polygon face, so we plug in the face mask into this guy, and the original goes into this guy. And let's look at the result first. Let's extrude by along normal. Here you go. We can do a little bit of extrusion, just like normally. If you are selecting bunch of polygon face and you're extruding it up, this is something that you will get. This is for like a local transformation. We'll leave it at 1 for simplicity. Let's suppose we want to do like a piggyback. If we want for this result, if I bake it, it looks something like this, and you can smooth it, and it's just like a normal extrusion. If you want, you can do like a combo of extrusions simply by duplicating this guy a couple of times. Let's try doing it 3 times. You will see later on that it's probably much easier if you are using a MONAD for this kind of like grouping of these 2 functions or 2 process. This one, if I'm not wrong, this should go in there. Actually, this is the face mask, so the mask goes inside the mask, but the result of this goes in there. Let's check this first. So double extrusion. We can control this radius. Actually, the scale. Where's the scale? Okay, this guy, the radius of the mask. This is for the scaling. We don't need to adjust that. We can control the height. But remember that because this is like a procedural masking, the center and radius will matter if we are doing it again. So so the least mask is always like a separating. What's important is keep eyes on the extrude region. So let's do it again. Vertices and polygon, and what we want to mask? We want to mask the polygons, and the output goes into extrude region, and then plug this into viewer draw, and we should control the position of the least mask. It should be like up there. There you go. It's kind of slightly tricky, but you can see what's going on, right? The first extrusion is that big one, the big one down there, and then second extrusion, and then the third extrusion, and you have control over the masking as well. So if I'm moving it to the side, it's kind of doing that, and all the effects is kind of procedural, and it will kind of continues until the last one, and then it's being shown at with a viewer draw. So like that. So it's like so doing it like this with the 2 nodes can be tricky. So like I said, it's better to just turn this into a MONAD. even though this is like a super simple process, but these two can be simplified. You might do something in between these. You can do anything using Sverchok nodes, but for now just this extrusion. The mask and the extrusions become a monad. Create a monad from selection, and that's our monad. We probably want to use the center and radius, so let's do that. And let's go up the monad. Okay, so this is the monad for extrusion. I'll call this MD extrude. And we can control the radius, and we can kind of move this center of the mask. Do we have control over the extrusion height and scale? Maybe we want to do that as well. Height and scale, go up. So the height and the scale of extrusion. Now if we want to do another extrusion, we simply copy that vertices and polygon. Oh, this guy needs a center, radius, height. Now this is like a funny case. In this case, we don't actually need the edges information, so we can go back and maybe cut this edges connection and delete these edges. Okay, now the monad is working. Because with the thing with monad is, if we have like inputs without, we have input slot and it's not connected to anything, it will not work. So be careful with that. So reduce the radius. So we can build like a something like a hat or wedding cake like this. I'll make this bigger and make a shaded. Radius control, scale control. If we are moving this up, we actually need to move this masking up as well. So this should be easier to extrude. Height scale, okay, this guy. We increase the radius here, height, radius, scale. So maybe yeah, I guess that's kind of interesting. And one more time. Vertices, polygon. This guy seems to be failing a little bit. Ah, there you go. Maybe because this is too high. Okay, there you go. Yeah, I think if this continues on going up and up, it's I guess the monad itself is fine, but like this process, maybe at some point we can turn this into some kind of like a loop or iterations, and you should be able to visualize the effects of iterations. So this is a tricky stuff, you know, but I'm pretty sure this can be done more elegantly. This is not bad actually. If you are using like a value that's growing for the z-axis, for example, if you want to make like a some kind of like a tower or a mountain, or like a, what do you call it, like a Tower of Babels, you can use this kind of extrusion and monad, maybe, or another way to do this. But yeah, the whole thing is procedural, and you can control the masking, and you can still kind of move it. If I move it too much, probably it's gonna fail at some point. Sure, actually this is like not bad. It's actually really good that we can do this already. So like I said, with the mask, it's really powerful. So wherever you find a nodes with a mask, that means you can operate by simply using the masking data. And this is just another, it's just like my experimentation with this. You probably normally don't want to put this inside a monad, but apparently this is working, and the mask can be piped down into the extrude region, and yeah, the whole thing works perfectly. Just an example, but I think this is very interesting to show. Okay, so I guess that's pretty much it for this live noding video. If you have any question, feedback, just let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next video.